Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Tabortown Council meeting for November 14th, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order. Councillor first.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? I'd like to propose that we remove, sorry, I'm just trying to find or not remove, but defer item 7.2 to our next meeting to allow it to come to the West Trail Extension Committee meeting before.
All right, what takes place, the West Trail Extension meeting takes place on Wednesday,
Yes.
the 16th, correct? All right. All right. Yes, we do.
So I would move to adopt the agenda as amended.
All right, we can do that. All of council in favor of that option? All right, sir. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. A little bit of aspect. Yes, all right. Okay, you know what, let's do that again, just to be sure. So that was a little bit unclear. All right. roll tape back. All right, once again, we do have a amended motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried now, so thank you. On to item 3, no public hearings. Item 4, adoption of the minutes. Item 4.1, minutes of organizational meeting of council, October 24th, 2022. Mr. Thibault.
The regular organizational minutes, sorry, not the regular, the organizational meeting minutes in front of you. Hopefully you've had a chance to read through, and there should be nothing really much to discuss.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council adopts the minutes of the organizational meeting of council held on October 24th, 2022 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4.2, minutes regular meeting of council, October 24th, 2022. Mr. Thibault.
Again, regular meeting minutes in front of you. Nothing extra special on those for your consideration.
Any questions arising there? Councillor Rudd.
Make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we adopt the minutes from the regular meeting of council held on October 24th as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5, business arising. There are none. Item 6, bylaws. Item 6.1, proposed nuisance and unsightly premises bylaw 2022. Mr. Thibault.
So we'll have a joint effort on this one, Ms. Carrie Van Ham and potentially Gary Shear to speak to the adjustments on this particular bylaw.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Van Ham.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. So this bylaw is being brought back because it was noticed that there was 2 Section 12s in the previous bylaw. So for enforcement purposes, it's easier if there's only one. So that was a request from TPS, as well as 6.1.2 was added regarding residence trees, as there was no clear measurement before. So a clear distance has been added for, again, enforcement. And 6.1.4 was also added for clarity of maximum height to allow for enforcement. But other than that, there's no changes to the bylaw.
All right. Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question of what the top of the roadway meant in 6.1.2. To the alleyway, you know, there is a distance of 5 meters from the top of the roadway. Can you just explain what the top of the roadway meant? Is it like the middle of the roadway or the edge of the roadway? That was just my question. Thanks.
All right. Mr. Shear.
Thank you. So is this basically from center of the road up 5 meters is all we're talking about? It's an elevation. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
There shouldn't be much difference deflection from the side to the middle, maybe 3-4 inches. Not a lot. 5 meters. Yep. Because our garbage trucks keep hitting the branches, so we want the residents to trim their trees.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, are dandelions still considered a noxious weed, and are they still being sprayed? Or because that's in item 6.2, 6.2.1.
So they're not considered a noxious weed. We would like residents to spray, but they don't have to if they don't want to. We recommend they do, but that's up to the property owners.
Could I just?
Sure.
So what would be the town's responsibility then on town property for dandelions?
We just basically mow them, cut.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Just back to 6.2.1. So it's saying here that they should not allow, so they are saying you're not allowed to have dandelions. No occupant or owner of any property or premise shall allow dandelions or noxious weeds to grow on occupied or unoccupied premises.
It does say that, I understand that, but it's kind of a moot point. They're gonna grow and we want them to cut them, is all we're asking for.
If I read that, though, I'd say if
You
neighbor
spray
has
'em,
dandelions,
yeah.
you gotta
I
get
get
rid
that.
of them.
Not
That
crystal
was a
clear.
recommendation that we had brought forward, but the reality is they're not a noxious weed. And there's no fine in it in the bylaw for having that.
Okay, then
All
back
right,
to the
thank you.
6.1.2, I believe it was. This is just on public property then, it's not
Yeah.
boundaries between properties.
No, it's just for the sidewalks and laneways.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tebow.
Just a bit of a clarification on the dandelions. Gary would have been speaking to the ungroomed areas where they do the cutting of dandelions. I'm aware that there's a spraying program from the groomed side of things. So in our parks, the groomed areas, there is a, now, do we spray every single park, every single dandelion, every single year? Maybe not, as budget allows, but there is a dandelion spraying program in place for the groomed areas.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rudd.
I don't know if it's a question or comment, but I mean, when you read that section, it's dandelions are included. You know, they could be, same as a noxious weed. If someone's got one or the other or both, they're just as liable for having either there. And I think it's a good idea to put it in like that, so we can control some of that.
I guess it would come down to enforcement. How are you gonna enforce it, right? And that would be up to Tabor Police. But our thinking was, yes, we'd like all the dandelions gone, and people should cut them or spray them and do something with them. That was the intent there, not to fine them.
Well, no, I don't think we're building that in, but I mean, if it gets to be a situation where there's no action being taken and there's complaints, then as far as I'm concerned, this gives force and effect to
That's why we wrote it in that bylaw. Yes.
to proceed under the bylaw for dandelions. I don't think that, I'm not a lawyer, don't want to be. I know enough that, I mean, if it's listed as an or, then it's, you know, you're liable to obey and be obliged to deal with them on your property.
And maybe the correct wording should be encourage people to take care of their dandelions.
No, I like it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, so people can deal with them.
Yes,
And
I
you don't have the scourge on one person's lawn.
But this did give TPS the option to say if they're really bad in someone's yard, to actually force that they do something with it. That was the
Right.
intent. Most people comply, there's not an issue.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen.
Just one more thing on the, for blight or disease of trees. I know that there's disease going around in the weeping willows. So how is that enforced in a neighborhood?
So each property owner is responsible for their own trees. So if something is bad or we notice it, we can enforce them to cut those trees down. We have found some Dutch elm that were on private properties and they've been contacted to remove those trees, things like that. But it's only based off of if somebody notices it. We have arborists from Lethbridge come, from the city of Lethbridge, and they do a review of the town, do a great job for us for nothing. And they provide us information to say, hey, this, and this needs to, and we contact the owners. So that's how that process works.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor McLean. That's all right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council gives first reading to the nuisance and unsightly premises bylaw 20-2022 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Bruin, you had a question? No. All right, thank you. You have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried now, so thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion that council gives second reading to the nuisance and unsightly premises bylaw 20-2022 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the third required motion. Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council unanimously agrees to proceed to third and final reading to the nuisance and unsightly premises bylaw 20-2022 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council gives third and final reading to the nuisance and unsightly premises bylaw 2022 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 6.2, proposed fee bylaw 18-2022. Mr. Tebow.
All right, a couple of things on this one, if I could. Administration is making an update to the recommendation that we just do second reading for tonight's meeting. There's been some information that administration has received that may affect the fee bylaw, and so we'd like to have some time to process that and bring that back to a future meeting. So there's that piece. And secondary, I believe that Councillor Sorensen had some comments about the home occupation last time, and I'm not sure if you noticed them this time. So page 10 of the actual bylaw or page 48 and 78 respectively have that information on there. So I just wanted to bring that back to your attention. Otherwise, it's there, and Mr. Orwa can go through any of the highlighted items if we'd like to go through that this evening.
All right, thank you. Just to confirm, the administration asked just to deal with this second motion, the second reading rather, and no further at this stage, correct?
Correct, if we could please.
Thank you. All right, any questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make the second reading requirement motion. Councillor Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion the council give second reading to fee bylaw 18-2022.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 6.3, business license bylaw 19-2022. Mr. Tebow.
Looks like Amy Allred's already on her way up, and she's going to provide context
All
for
right,
this one.
thank you, Ms. Allred.
Hello again. This is probably the easiest explanation for an update to a bylaw. We have removed the schedule of fees to put them in the fee bylaw and changed all references to reference the fee bylaw.
All right,
That's all.
thank you. Very good. Thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Firth?
No questions, Mr. Mayor, but I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
I move that council gives first reading to business license bylaw 19-2022.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Rudd, did you have a question?
No, I just think that was a great idea
All right,
to do
thank
that.
you.
Reads
right.
much better.
All right, very well, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Great, thank you. Moving on to action items, item 7.1, request for letter of support, provincial traffic enforcement fine revenue. Mr. Tebow.
So I believe this email was already circulated to all council members coming from Mayor Blaine Higgin. And the gist of it is that the province is taking fine revenues a little more than they used to, and it's meaning something to the municipality. So Mr. Mayor Higgin sent this letter looking for support from various municipalities.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Comments? Councillor Bruin.
I'd like to make this motion. Council requests administration to create a letter encouraging Honorable Tyler Shandro, Minister of Justice and Solicitor General, to review the percentage of revenue allocations returned by the government of Alberta to the various municipalities with their own local police services, which are generated by the local police services throughout the province from the provincial enforcement fine revenue.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.2 is deferred. Item 7.3, feral and stray cat discussion. Mr. Tebow.
So I'll speak to this one. Get to it here. So there was a request that came in from the last cat ranch a while ago, and it didn't ever materialize in coming in front of council because there'd been some sickness with the individual. And so it's been deferred for so long that I wanted to bring it forward. Plus, it was also brought up by Chief Abella. And in looking into it, it looks like there was $15,000 allocated to a feral cat program in years past. I'm aware of a program that doesn't have to bring a bylaw back into effect, and it's an external contractor that has the ability to come in. I've used them in the past in my previous job. They're an outfit out of Calgary that comes in. They do the cat herding, which is no easy task, and they do the spade and neuter program, and then the re-release. I know that Chief Abella was consistent in the messaging that there seems to be a lot more feral cats around, and the last cat ranch has also indicated directly herself, not able to provide the stats. Obviously, I had them here, but there has been an increase and an increased cost to look after the cat population. So this is a request that maybe looks like something from Back to the Future, and asking if council has any appetite in adding this to the operational budget for 2023.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rudd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment on this. Council's had fun with this one in years gone by. And I know we had a presentation by the individual who was managing the program at the time. And they had done some head counts and calculations on the gestations of cats, pregnancies, and had a great big formula. And as I remember, Councillor Beckering said, with those numbers, we'd be up to our knees in cats. So, and it was quite true, because at the time the police budget was being used to supplement the original $15,000, and so that made a certain individual pretty unhappy that was happening. So I just point out that in the description of where this will impact, and under service level and staff resource implication, currently unquantifiable due to multiple considerations related to an internal or external program selection. So I think that's got to be sorted out and be clear on what gets done. And I really waffle on this one just because of the experience in the past that we had. You know, I think if there was some caveats on it that it would end at 15,000. I mean, they're coming out of Calgary, and then the vets eat up quite a lot of this money as well. So I think if council's of the opinion that we should go ahead with something like this, I'd like to see some caveats put on it so that it doesn't further affect anyone else's budget.
All right, thank you. Councillor Brown?
Actually, I agree with Councillor Rudd on this. I'm very interested in what Mr. Thibault was discussing about having a team come in and do a cat roundup. I think this program has been abused a lot in the past. I'm not sure what it costs now to spay or neuter a cat, but I'm guessing $200. Nothing's under $200 when you go into the vet. That does 80 cats. That's not going to make a big dent in it. So I think we need more information about this before we let loose $16,000.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was just wondering, like, is this an annual commitment or is this a one-off?
So the idea is it would be an annual commitment to look after cats as a ongoing process. We found in my previous role as well. If there were going to be if there's any interest at all, the budget is the budget. So just like any other operational budget item, the likelihood of us exceeding a budget overall is very unlikely. We don't go past that. So we would see how much service we would get for that kind of money. And a little bit about the previous program. It was done in conjunction with the town of Redcliffe and Cypress County. and they came in, they actually captured I don't know how many cats it was, and it might have been a $24,000 budget that I recall, split between the two municipalities. It was the intention. And they actually took the cats back to Calgary, had the vet service there, do things, and brought them back again. And they did what they could do in the amount of money that they had. So I would recommend that it does go to an external, because it's a lot of internal resources. Speaking with Chief Abella, it is not an easy thing to make time for. So the external option is probably the better choice.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question, the Last Chance Cat Ranch, are they registered, who are they?
I believe they are registered. They're out of Lethbridge, and they take our cats in.
The other thing, with this, I think, I'm prepared to make a motion that council request additional information related to the discussion of this item, specifically the cost per cat to spay or neuter, and to look at different options.
All right, thank you. You do have a couple of questions pending also. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering why it was discontinued in 2021. What, if we had that program in place, then why was it discontinued? If you know.
Mr. Tebow, I think we did have some discussion about that actually.
I think there was some budget overruns that were taking place. I think, like Councilor Bruin had mentioned, there was something not adding up or maybe gone awry. And I don't know, something to do with maybe resources. Maybe Councilor Rudd would know more about the resource side of things. But it was a program that seemed to be continuously going over budget and had trouble performing the tasks.
Yeah, and it was the last council that dealt with that, so I guess just asking the fellow councillors who were part of the last council to chime in possibly, but I think if I recall, there was something to the effect about some abuse concerns financially, if I remember correctly. And all things considered, it was thought to be better to discontinue that, but it was never, I don't think, suggests that we don't do anything further, and that's kind of where it's been left, bottom line. So it's we're at this stage now, roughly 2 years later, and there are definitely more troubles attached to that, as many businesses and or individuals can attest to. Councillor Rudd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, the rub on this is the bring them back and release them. And I think that's where that created the opportunity for the abuse, because you just let Bobo out the door, and pretty soon Bobo comes back all fixed up and spayed and neutered and got all the shots, and then so I mean, a true feral cat has no owner. So why would we invest in releasing an unknown cat back into the wild? That needs a rethink.
Well, I think in that regard, Councillor Rudd, as I understand it, was to control the population, actually, if a female, anyway, as far as that goes, so, and or the males, so that's part and parcel of what's involved, but,
Well, if the cats are at a level now where they're a problem, if you catch them all and release them all, you still got the problem, because it's still until they start dying off. And, I mean, yeah, they can't reproduce. That's the theory behind it,
Yeah.
but, it just doesn't add up. And like I say, that release allowed people to, and created the opportunity for that abuse.
right, all right, thank you. Councillor Broom?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there are quite a few Bobos in town. And I think unless we know a specific amount costs to spay or neuter a cat, say you have $100 per cat, and that's it. Like, then they maybe be able to pick the cats that are down. They'd be able to maybe vet out the ones that they know are just going to be a pet. I think there has to be some limits to it. That's why I made the motion such as I did, so we can have a specific cost. It's going to cost you 100 cats. We can do 160 cats, and that's it. So maybe perhaps the people that are doing this will say, well, no, this is going to be a pet. So it's not a true feral cat.
Right.
And I think when you go through all the trouble of catching these feral cats, I know it's not the politically correct thing to say, well, once you got them caught, why are you not dealing with them then and not have feral cats?
All right, just a question for Mr. Tebow. Was this Red Cliff you were referring to? I think, did you say that?
It was a joint effort between Red Cliff and Cypress County.
Okay, I
So
guess
Cypress County had already done the program the year
Okay.
before by
okay,
themselves.
so was that a new program with them, or had they had
It was
something?
no, it was a brand new program.
They had never had anything previous, but they realized they had a problem, that's what they went with.
Yeah, I think residents came forward
Okay.
and approached the council of the day, and they were able to track down this external service because they couldn't do it internally themselves either.
All right, thank you. Counselor Sorensen?
I'm not sure if you're up for a friendly amendment to your motion, just to get a bit more information on how we can identify these feral cats and how we can, not keep on trapping the same cat year after year for this program too, and how we can identify that this cat has been neutered or whatever, treated, so we're not doing the same process year after year after year on the same feral cat.
All right, so sorry, you go ahead.
Well, it's pretty easy to tell when they've been neutered. Like you won't re-neuter them. So
but you're still catching it.
yeah, why are you catching it though? If it's neutered and spayed, it's out there. It's going to die eventually and not make any more cats. So if they're bringing back the same cat,
But is there a way we can identify them so that they can, like, just down the street say, oh, that one's been.
Tag 'em.
That, yeah.
I was just gonna say, Counselor Sorensen, are you looking to add a friendly amendment related to a tagging format of some type?
Or identification, I don't know, I don't
Okay.
have pets.
No,
I
I'm
don't
just
have
saying, I'm
pets,
just
so
trying to
I don't
help
know
you
how
out.
to do this,
You're
yeah.
asking for a friendly amendment,
Yeah.
up to Counselor Bruin whether he accepts that or not, but it's some form of tagging.
Tagging, identification system.
So how would you like to word that exactly? Just, so the friendly amendment would include
Some type of
identification.
tagging, yeah, or ID.
I
tagging or
don't think
identification.
you'd get away with tagging them, but
No.
I totally get what you want to do. To devise a way to identify the feral cats.
Right.
I'd be happy to accept that amendment.
All right, that's clear. That's exactly your target. Okay, perfect. Counselor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to point out that these feral cats, they do, they provide a service of sorts they'll control a rodent population, but I don't think that they should be allowed, like the population of the cats themselves should be allowed to grow unchecked. And so if we have this program in place, at least it's something. Like we shouldn't be subsidizing spaying and neutering of pets, which I think has been discussed already. But to control the feral cat population, I think this would be. It's a proven program that other communities have in place. It's simple, it's humane, so I would be in favor of it.
All right, thank you. Counselor Rudd?
I just add to that, it was necessary at one time, and it's been since 2019 when it was canceled. So here we are in 2022. So 3 years later, we got a problem. So if we had a drive every couple of years rather than make it an annual thing, maybe that would be some middle ground that we could look at, Mr. Mayor, once we get a report back.
All right, thank you. We do have a friendly accepted amendment on the table. Counselor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to me that we could discuss cats till hell freezes over, but I think I'd like to see the motion read back and then proceed, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Ms. Van Ham?
The motion that I have recorded is that council requests additional information related to discussion of the feral and stray cat discussion items, specifically costs per cat to spay or neuter, and look at different options, and with the friendly amendment to devise a way to identify the feral cats. And that friendly amendment was accepted.
All right, thank you. Once again, friendly accepted amendment on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.4, donation request of a garbage truck for County of Sayeh, Town of Bondo. Mr. Tebow.
So long-awaited garbage truck discussions. I know we've talked about it a few times over. We're actually at a point where we received a letter from the governor of the county of Sayeh, which was officially requesting the garbage truck. And so we did have a delegate come over and take a look at the garbage truck. He spent some time with Mr. Scheer and Mr. Orwa, and I I know he was here in front of council, spent some time with Mr. Mayor, took some pictures of the garbage truck, did the inspections they needed, and were happy and satisfied that that would suit their needs. So the official request to get a motion from council helps the county of Saya for a few different reasons, for taxation purposes and donation purposes and stuff like that. So the letter's attached, and the recommended motion is in front of you. Specifically, we need to have like a VIN number and things like that in the motion to help the county of Saya with the donation process. So that's in front of you right now.
All right, thank you. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is great use of our garbage truck that we're no longer using, and so I'd be happy to make the motion.
All right.
I move that the town of Taber, Alberta, Canada donates a white 2002 International 7400 tandem garbage truck, VIN number 1HTWGAAR82J040822 to Bondo Municipality within the county government of Sayaya with all costs for repairs and transportation to the recipient.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Sorensen?
I did have a question, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering, so this type of equipment would normally go to the auction. Is there an approximate value?
So
Mr.
something
Sher.
like this, we would put around $5,000.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right. Once again, motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.2, 2022 capital budget funding changes. Mr. Thibault.
Mr. Orwa is going to come up and talk money.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Roy.
Good afternoon, His Worship and members of council.
Good afternoon.
Now, what is before you is just more of housekeeping and making sure that the auditors will be in line with what they're expecting from us. So when we brought this to council for approval, 2022 capital project, at that point, we estimated that 2022 was based on what we received in 2021, that is MSI. But after a while, we figured out that in 2021, they gave us more money. So we thought we were going to get more again in 2022. But I think later on, I think after consulting with Municipal Affairs, they explained that they just front-loaded future funding to us at that point because they wanted most municipalities to catch up with the shortfalls during COVID. Now, with that, what that means is what we had allocated for MSI, we have to refund some of those projects. And I think I've just attached areas where we moved some of those MSI funding, which goes back into the reserves. So we're just asking, administration is just asking council to approve the funding adjustments. So you can see up there, we had put next gen to come from MSI, raw water pump station, tipping building, tennis court, and all those things. So now those things must now come from capital reserves. But the good news is the raw water pump station, there's some funding that we got there from Alberta Municipal Water and Wastewater. That's why now from reserves, we're only expecting about 674,000.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does that add to our deficit, John, that taking that out of reserves, that 674? What does that do to our debt picture?
No, so this is just strictly from capital reserves and has nothing to do with the long-term debt.
So it's cash available?
This is now cash available in the reserves. That originally we just parked in there because we were using the MSI, but now that they're going to give us less funding, we have to, get that money from the capital reserves.
Have they canceled MSI or just renamed it?
No, MSI has not been cancelled. I think it will continue until end of 2023. Then the beginning of 2024, they'll be calling it the LGFF. So that's a different methodology that they're building up, how they'll be funding municipalities.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Orwa, from what I can understand from this graph you provided, are you telling us that from 2021 to 2022, there was a reduction of MSI funding of $874,000?
Yes, there was a big reduction because
How big is it?
right now the allocation that they're giving us for 2022 is only $851,000. and then 2023 will be the same. So they have reduced it by that amount. And we don't know exactly how the new methodology is going to be for the new LGFF funding.
All
Mr.
right.
Mayor,
Yes.
a follow-up then. So, Mr. Orwell, you're telling us that the MSI was reduced from 2021 to 2022 by 50%?
So what the explanation given is they front-loaded the funding, future funding. So in 2021, they gave us more money. So we thought that, because they gave us more money, I was expecting additional funding in 2022, only to be told that there's going to be a reduction because we gave you more last year. So the new one, we're not very sure. So we just brought it back for council approval because, the auditors asked to match the funding with the projects, and it will not match the previous one that was approved by council.
All right, thank you. Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then all of that MSI funding from last year that was like, in excess of what you typically get, so we used it all?
Yeah, it's been allocated to different projects.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Councilor Rudd.
My questions is similar to what was asked by Councilor McLean. How much was that? That front load, was it equivalent to the 851?
Yeah, so in total, it was about almost 2 million. But remember, how MSI works is we do applications, and with those applications, we tell them how we plan to fund those projects. Then at the end of the year, we let them know that this was our plan, and this is the actual expenditure. So sometimes we end up saving some little money in between there that we use to apply to other projects. So it just keeps on rolling depending on how effective we are with the funding on our side. Sometimes it could be a good example I would give you, we could have an application of 2 million, but we end up spending about 1 million, maybe 900. So we're left with another 100,000. We use that now to apply for a different project.
All right, thank you. Councilor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding is these projects have not been completed or started yet. Is that correct?
No, some of these projects could have been started. They could have been started, but they have not been completed. But now the funding at year end, so what the auditors do is they match the funding with those projects. It will not line up. So that's why we are requesting that we will not have that much in MSI. We are requesting it to come from capital reserves.
Yes.
I was just wondering if some of these that we thought were originally going to be funded, if they can be postponed because of, the deficit that we've been now. Oh, sorry. Thank you. I was just wondering if some of these can be postponed because we haven't been receiving the funding then for some of these projects.
Well, that is a question probably that I might direct to my fellow colleagues, because I know like next year 911 is something that is in the process, and I really doubt whether they can postpone it because they're already working on it somehow. Tennis court, I'm not very sure. Maybe you might help me with that.
Tennis court and the Aqua Fund locker replacements no money has been expended.
And
All
then
right,
the
thank you.
TSS
Mr. Sure,
system
and something to add?
substation.
So the raw water pump station, basically that's just engineering, but that we would move that over to Alberta Municipal Water and Wastewater. The transfer station typically that is still ongoing. That's been tendered and awarded, so that will move forward. But that's our only two. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
I was just going to clarify that. I know the 911 project has started. I don't know at what stage they're at exactly, but money has been expended. Gary spoke about the building. The tennis court upgrade hasn't happened at all, and the locker replacement, as Mr. Egan indicated, I think it's been competed a couple times, but we've never landed on an award of any sort. So some of them are in progress.
All right, thank you, Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then out of our capital reserves, minus this, how much would we have left?
That is a question that cannot be answered at this point. The reason being is we answer that effectively at the end of the year because there are a lot of moving parts during
Right.
the year.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Yeah, I think most of my questions are answered, but we've obviously approved all these projects, right? Like to go forward.
All these projects were approved with MSI funding. So we just brought them back because the funding is going to change.
Yes. So with the MSI, is it basically use it or lose it? Like if they award us so much, we will use it.
Once we've been allocated, we have to use it within the stipulated time.
Okay, thank you, John.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to get back to the MSI differential, Mr. Mora, because it concerns me. How much was it front loading? How much front loading money did we get?
2 million.
Besides the regular MSI?
No. In total.
All included. So how much was the regular MSI and how much was the front load because of COVID?
Now, with MSI, to be very specific with you, it keeps on changing depending on who is sitting on the seat. And I knew that question would come up. So if you look at from 2018, we only had 1.2 million. In 2019, we had 1.1 million. In 2020, we had 1.7 million. In 2021, we had 2 million, and then down to 851.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Roden. It's a very confusing kind of formula. Even, I had myself and others grilled MLA Grant Hunter quite a lot about this as well, and talked about the front loading, but even today, it's still confusing to me overall. But the bottom line, I think, did they not come up with percentages? Every given year was going to go up a bit percentage-wise as far as what we're not getting, what we got from the average previous, correct?
I think what they do with those is they just make projections. Like they would make projections, then somewhere in between, they are caught in such a way that probably they might not meet some of those projections. So it is exactly when they are doing their allocation, that's when they realize either they are short or they have more than they give out to municipalities. But even right now, you see when they started the LGFF, this thing started like almost 2 years ago. We will be moving to the new methodology. But I remember when we had a chance to meet with them with Mr. Thibault, I did put that question before them. Can you tell me exactly the methodology you're using, how you're going to allocate those funds? And what was the answer?
No.
They don't have a clue. So it's just a roller coaster. And now they're pleading with the municipalities so that we can assist them.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then, in our capital reserves, do we have enough to fund this?
Yes, we do.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this is one of my favorite subjects, Mr. Over, as you know. The MSI funding was originally announced as a 10-year program, and if I remember correct, at the very beginning, I think we got about $2.6 million annually, and it was fairly steady. Of course, then the government started fooling around with it. But the MSI was based on 3 things, I believe. Equalized assessment, population, miles of road. I believe that's how it was originally instituted to be calculated. It worked for the whole province, MPs, counties, and towns and cities. Of course, the MPs and counties got more money because they got more miles of road. So that was from my perspective, was a boondoggle, and I'm glad we're going to a new methodology regarding funding under the LGFF, because I think this thing is worn out and it's forever being decreased, and it's crazy.
Yeah, Councillor Becker, I would agree completely. It is crazy in so many ways, but the big thing is it affects all municipalities the same way per capita, right? So percentage-wise, we're all in the same boat. So hopefully that can improve with the new model all the way around. Thank you, Councillor Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, a decision was made to approve the capital budget as it was submitted, and we discussed it, and we got great detail from everyone, but it was premised on getting MSI. So now we're not getting MSI. Is it an opportunity to revisit? I look at the items on there, and I can recall most of them, other than the tennis court upgrade. I can't recall what the priority was of that, urgency on that or not. And I just asked the fellow councilors if it's an opportunity to re-examine that list, the stuff that's been started, fine. Our building at the tip site and our pump station, everything, that's good to go. But I just see that one item there of $100,000 and wonder if there's an opportunity to maybe defer that or cancel it.
I can speak to that from the user group. I'm not a user myself, but talked to many that are, and I think Mr. Tebow can also attest this, and/or Mr. Egan. But is this going on 2 years now? We've just a little bit deferred because of some other maintenance inquiries and/or repairs that may or may not be necessary. Mr. Tebow?
Yeah, I had looked at last year's to get an idea of how this worked, because this was my first budget season, so I watched last year's budget season, and I think it was a $45,000 ask back then by the Director of Recreation, which then got amended to this $100,000 ask. And so just to be clear, this is not the 2023 capital budget, that's something different. This was the 2022 capital budget. So these are projects that have been carrying forward from a previous year. So the next council item that we have, if I understood you correctly, Councillor Rudd, is the 2023 capital budget items that we have approved once already. These ones were approved prior to the new council being put in place. So you have seen them because they came forward as carryovers, but this is not the 2023 capital budget. This is the 2022.
And I think in all fairness, Mr. Tebow and Mr. Egan, this has been, I'm not sure, is it 10 years plus it has not been addressed? It was over 10 years, I believe, was it not?
The tennis courts themselves?
Yes, yeah.
I can't speak to how long it's been. It's by looking at the place, it's probably hasn't been touched in for sure 5-8 years, something like that.
Yeah, so and again, I don't know. I did see it. I had a number of people talk to me about that, and I'm no expert in that regard, but I think Mr. Egan can you attest to that also? Anything your comments wise suggest the same as an actual need and overdue need?
So there is a maintenance need on the tennis courts. The surfacing is cracked and displaced, but we were reassessing the project this year in the summer, and because the original scope of work was to replace the entire surface, which included the asphalt subsurface. So we believe we can do a smaller project and return the courts to serviceability that way. We just never got to it in this season.
So all has considered, if I'm understanding that, this could be a reduced figure,
Yes.
but it's still in need of whatever that figure
There
may
still
be.
is a need.
Yes.
We
Okay.
could either proceed with, we can certainly accomplish the required upgrades and maintenance within this budget.
Right.
The alternative is we could return this budget and rescope the project and come back in either in 2023 or in the 2024 capital budget requests and present a rescoped project.
Right. All right. Thank you, Councillor Sorensen.
Yeah, so that was kind of my ask, is if we could take these maybe 1 or 2 items and just ask for them to be relooked at, and if that's a possibility or not.
Yeah, I think just in all fairness, I think it's already been looked at, and you're expecting a lesser figure. This right now it's $100,000 earmarked, but likely to be quite a lot less than that. Correct. All right. Thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an interesting discussion, but I think we're talking the wrong item on the agenda. The next one is the 2023 proposed capital budget. That's what we should be discussing here, not the 2022. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Bruin.
Sorry, Garth threw me off there a little bit. So the tennis court upgrade, we haven't tendered anything out yet with that. That's correct. No. So this is 2022. We're not, yeah, so I
That's
was
right.
actually looking at 2023, is wondering why we're discussing this. We saved how much money by not putting in that bulb out? That comes out of that money also goes into the reserves because we didn't spend it, right? So money we saved by not putting in that bulb out would affect these projects as well. By not doing the bulb out, we can do the tennis court upgrade.
So I think probably we are mixing the 2 years. We're just talking about, this is 2022, but it was only strictly the funding, because it's just the funding that is changing. And then the bulb outs, again, you'll hear this coming up in 2023.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Sorensen.
I'd be prepared to make a motion. I'll be interested in everyone's comments, but I would be prepared to make a motion of council approves the 2022 capital budget funding with the following amendments. And that would be to reduce it by the 100,000 and to reduce it by the 90,000. And just, go forward with the other, amounts proposed. And add those other two projects to the 2023 budget.
All right, you know what? I'm not sure I follow that complete motion, to be honest. Mr. Tebow?
I think, if I'm following it correctly, is the idea behind that motion is to move forward with all the projects except the bottom two, and to bring those bottom two projects back to council for consideration in the 2023 capital budget is what I think I understood.
Yes, that's what I'm proposing.
Okay, I guess, Ms. Van Ham, if we just get that read back to confirm that that's exactly what the content reveals.
The council approves the 2022 capital budget funding with the following amendments: to reduce by 100,000 and 90,000 and go forward with the other amounts and add the other two projects to the 2023 projects.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rudd?
Yeah, the money's there now, and it will be, so it'll be the same money paying
Okay.
for it next year, because we'll just bring that money forward. Is that not correct?
That is correct. At the same time, even if it's 100,000, if they are now tendering and they're willing to reduce that money, although council approves 100,000, if it comes to 50,000, the other 50,000 remains in the reserves.
Right, all right, thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Mr. Orva is requesting a motion or permission from council through a motion that we make a funding adjustment, not discuss what we should leave in the capital budget for 2022 or take out of the capital budget 2022, because I think that's a separate item, Mr. Mayor, and that should be discussed in the 2023 budget. Am I wrong on that?
Mr. Orwa?
I think that is correct. I was only requesting the funding changes because for the auditor's purposes, because they match the funding with the projects. If it's off, I have to explain why I went outside council's approval. So that is correct. It's only funding changes that I was looking for.
Councillor Firth?
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate exactly what Councillor Beckering said, that these items have already been, or these projects have already been debated and approved, and we just need to approve the funding. If they don't get finished this year, they're going to roll forward next year, so.
All right, so,
What everybody else has already said.
okay. So bottom line, thank you, Councillor. I believe there's some confusion here, for myself included. As has been stated, it's already been approved all the way around, correct, the total? And this is simply an ask to move forward with that complete total, and whatever happens out of the other items on the list that could change substantially. Councillor Sorensen?
Well, I just see as an alternate that I can make this motion. And so if the funding has been changed, right? So you guys, in the past, council made approved certain funding based on what was gonna be received. And we did not receive that amount. And so that's my intention of this motion, is if the funding wasn't received, let's relook at what we did, what was decided upon. And based on future funding, because we didn't receive what we actually thought was gonna be received. That's why I just made that motion.
All right, thank you. We do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? All right, defeated. All right, now, Mr. Orwa, did you need something further? Or is anybody else? Councillor Beckering? All right.
Council approved the 2022 capital budget funding adjustments as presented with $674,753 to come from capital reserve.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 7.6, 2023 proposed capital budget. Mr. Tebow.
So Mr. Orwell will stay up here and we can probably have some more discussion around capital budgets. This might help clarify some of the concerns that were raised in the last capital budget dollars. And this is your opportunity to revisit things that you might want to revisit. That being said, administration has made an update. Ooh, that's pretty tiny. You'll have to look at it on your own device. Administration has made an update to this by removing a couple of projects that were going to be, we recommended last time to be serviced through long-term debt, which have been removed. That was over $2 million of project work, I think. So as you'll notice, we are spending less than what we are anticipating to receive. And there's, for all the reasons you folks had talked about at the previous item number, is some of the reasons why we are attempting to spend less than what we're actually getting in from a funding perspective to help offset some of the other items. So administration is alive to that and have put this budget forward, presented this in that fashion for that reason.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Sorensen.
Well, just with last meeting, I think that the cargo trailer for the fire was an ask, not necessarily needed, or we were gonna, there was some type of question as to what type of vehicle, what needed to be purchased in future years, and if that future purchase could do the same storage as this cargo trailer. I'm not sure if anybody remembers that or not.
The chief is here. The chief.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Munshaw could speak to that.
Chief Munshaw.
I was hiding this time. Council, thank you for asking the question. To ask a question on the cargo trailer, it's based on our future needs. Our future need to produce forward and to actually take the 2 vehicles and move down to 1. This is the initial step to do so. Currently at this time, the vehicles we have are unsafe and going to cause us some personal bodily issues, trying to move some of the equipment on and off, try to make that deemed safe now, and then move it forward to maximize our space into 1 vehicle to the future. Just looking more forward and step by step.
All right, thank you. Councillor Bruin.
Our chief is still at the mic. This cargo trailer, how big is it? How long?
We'll be looking right around the 16 to 18 feet range.
Okay, so this eventually won't be needed?
It will still need it. That's keeping it forward, because in the past, when we looked at the ladder truck, that was looking the next future and looking at one that can be a pumper rescue combination to reduce down to 1 vehicle instead of 2. This will make that happen. We can put all that extra stuff into this trailer, keep it there for the small type of use when we need it at those times.
Yeah, because I was just thinking like a cargo trailer, you know, it's always going to be of use, no matter
Always.
what. It's something that, can, if your department doesn't need it, it can always be transferred to another as well. At $30,000 though, is that equipped differently with shelving or
That's
something?
shelving, that's all a bathroom unit, because right now when we go to scenes for a long period of time, sometimes it's very difficult to use facilities and grab and get those facilities, so this
Okay,
would have a
it's,
very
so
small
it's more
portable.
than just a cargo trailer. It's,
Completely.
like the bathroom's actually a very good point. It's,
Yeah.
so.
And, yeah, always changing and developing in times.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Rudd?
Yeah, just one item for clarification. Under financial implication, currently unquantifiable due to multiple considerations, which is blamed on council. So, does that mean that that we would tinker in the future with?
No, I can answer that.
All right,
So,
Mr. Roa.
if you've been very consistent with the financial implications, especially when it comes to finance, we don't always point a specific figure, because when we bring things like this to council, they might make changes. So it's unquantifiable. They might remove a project, they might increase, or something might come up. So you don't quantify until I get direction. So that is why it is always there. And you'll always notice that when it comes to some of those issues, we talk of unquantifiable until council provides direction. Now, the other thing that I also want to mention that probably just to lay emphasis on, if you look at 2023, we are trying to make it so lean. And this time around, if you look at MSI, I'm hitting 851. The reason is that is what they've allocated. And once it's allocated, it's public knowledge, you can go out and see it. Again, if you look at federal gas tax, it's in the 500 area. So we have to call, will we get the same amount of money? That's why it's making it to the budget. The other thing that I wanted to mention there is on the reserves. You can see the contributions to capital from the tax base. We get about 2 million, but out of that 2 million, I've only allocated 965,000. So there's an extra about 1 million left there, which goes into the reserves or might be used for something else as directed by council. The other one is the 3 million, of course, again with council's direction, we know how we are going to pay off or service that debt. And then the last one, I think it mentioned, maybe Councillor Bruin mentioned about the bulb out. So that started last year, but it was a commitment on federal gas tax. So in last year, we commit future federal gas tax. That's why you see the total is 500,000, but that 137 had already been committed, so I have to account for it. That's why you see there 137,000. This will be used for 52 and 48 Avenue. That's the bulb out that Councillor Bruin was talking about.
Right, thank you, Councillor Bruin.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor? Sure. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I'd be prepared to make a motion as well when the discussion is over to approve that. And then, so the budget at the end of the day ends up with the wisdom of council being applied, then it could end up differently than what we've got in there. Then is, I think that's what you said in total. Did you?
I'll get back to unquantifiable.
In a nutshell, I guess.
You're
Yeah.
going to stick with unquantifiable.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, I'm going to bring up the bulb out then. So we've got set aside for from 2022 to 2023. So we've already designated the money for the bulb out in 2023.
Yes, so when the bulb out, when it came up last year, we said we're going to commit future federal gas tax. So the future federal gas tax was the 2023 gas tax. Now that we know we are going to get 500, I have to make sure that we allocate that what we committed last year into this year so that it can be used.
So we're committing to spending this amount of money on a bulb out in 2023.
Correct.
So as I spoke earlier, this bulb out, we could do the lockers, we could do the tennis courts, we could do something that actually helps the public. So why would we spend $500,000+ on a bulb out? Because all it's going to do is take away 4 parking spots and not make a single penny for downtown area. I just don't understand the thinking of council thinking this bulb out's a good idea. And where we can obviously see where we can use this money in other places. So I'd like to strike the bulb out from 2023, move it to 2024. For the last, what has it been, 8, 9 years, this has been pushed out thinking it was a waste of money to spend it. This council's come in and said, well, we should spend over $500,000 on a bulb out. I understand there may be infrastructure underneath the bulb out, but we don't need to put a bulb out to fix the infrastructure. We can just redo the street and save a lot of money. So, as I've said before, this bulb out is a waste of taxpayers' money.
I'll let Mr. Shea respond, but just in terms of the numbers, it's not 500,000. 500,000 is the total federal gas tax. That includes the 100,000, includes the 262. The bulb out is only 137,000 at the bottom if you look at the under federal gas tax.
And that's the town's contribution,
37,000. That is from federal gas tax. That is a grant coming from federal.
That would pay the tennis courts or do something else. We don't need to spend that money there.
I'll let Mr. Gary respond on the bulb out.
Mr. Scheer.
So when we brought the tender forward, council decided to cancel the tender because it was over budget, re-tender it for future in 2023, so we can move forward. So we'll re-tender it, and it's going out in January. And then when it comes back, we'll see what amounts are there, and then council can make that decision at that time.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to Mr. Shear, I think was that something that we had to send a letter asking for that grant to be extended? And I was
Yes.
wondering if you heard any news.
We've had some good discussions with them, and they really want us to spend that money.
Okay.
They said they want that money for open areas, for communities. So they're working with us for that extension. They haven't said yes yet, but they hopefully will have that soon.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scheer answered my query, so it's all cool.
All right, thank you. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Rudd, you offered, that's right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd make the motion that council approves the 2023 capital budget as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7.7, standing item council requests. Mr. Tebow.
This is Mr. Tebow's favorite part of the meeting. As mentioned before, we are down to one item, and I don't know if there's an update from Mr. Shear or not. Still in progress according to the
All right,
item
thank you,
listing.
Mr. Scheer.
So we have reviewed this. There is some stormwater capacities on 53rd and on 66th Avenue it should be. So we're going through the process of hiring contractors, should be out there in a week or two, and excavate a small ditch, so it should be done here by end of November, we're hoping.
Thank you for looking into that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that update. Any other standing item council requests? Councillor Bruin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, like to, I don't know if this is really a standing item, but I'd like to apologize to council for missing last meeting and thank council for the cards and the beautiful flowers they sent me while I was in the hospital.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing no other council standing item requests, on to delegation, or no delegation, meeting inquiries, Mr. Tebow.
I believe we are consistent with none.
All right. Thank you. All right. With that, I would ask to move into our 30-minute meal break and then subsequently move into closed session. Councillor Firth.
I can make that motion.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor?